Welcome into a WFUV Sports special report. As of literally 30 minutes ago, Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted out that the Washington Wizards are finalizing a trade to send All-Star guard Bradley Beale to the Phoenix Suns. Beal would be waiving his no-trade clause to form a new Big Three with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And the framework for the deal surrounds Chris Paul and Landry Shamet and, quote, a handful of second-round picks going back to Washington. But the Phoenix Suns will now be forming essentially the largest super team in the NBA as it stands today. Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, all on one team. Now, some people may be asking, they see the return and their first reaction is definitely that it's underwhelming and that you could say the Wizards got fleeced. But a lot went into this deal that the casual fan may not understand. And the biggest thing is Bradley Beal's contract. Essentially, this deal was negotiated between Bradley Beal and the Phoenix Suns. The Wizards were just mediators, essentially, finding something that would kind of work for both teams. But at the end of the day, if Bradley Beal said, I wanted to go to Golden State, Washington would have to hang up the phone on any other team that was interested. It's also combined by the fact that Bradley Beal has only played 90 games in the last two seasons combined. He's going to be making over $200 million over the next 4 seasons. But with that no-trade clause and his injury history, the return, you were not going to see a Rudy Gobert-type return, a Kevin Durant-type return. This was essentially the best the Wizards could get. Beal's no-trade clause was unheard of. It's unheard of in the NBA. The only other 9 players in the history of the association to ever receive a no-trade clause: Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, LeBron James, Dirk Nowitzki, David Robinson, John Stockton, Dwayne Wade, and Bradley Beal. One name on that list maybe sticks out just a little bit in terms of the quality of player. And don't get me wrong, the Suns are getting a tremendous player in Bradley Beal, a player who averaged 30 points per game alongside Russell Westbrook, who is an all-star in this league, but unequivocally is not worth the money he was given. So now when you look at the Suns, they have 5 players for sure on the team next year under contract: DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Cameron Payne at a combined $169.4 million. That's a lot of money. And when you especially look at the new CBA, which is incorporating what they're calling aprons, and the second apron, essentially a marker which, if a team surpasses on their payroll and their salary cap, they will receive an absurd amount of restrictions going into that year and beyond. And the second apron in this new CBA, which will take effect next season, is at $175 million. So essentially, the Suns will be going over that second apron. And among the several restrictions it imposes, teams above the second apron cannot use the taxpayer mid-level exception to sign free agents. They cannot sign players in the buyout market. So, for example, Russell Westbrook to LA would have never happened. They cannot send out cash in trades. Something that is common in the NBA now, if you cross that apron, cannot do it. They cannot trade first-round picks that are more than 6 years into the future. They cannot make trades in which they take back more salary than they send out. So essentially, this super team build, which you see the Suns are committing to, is essentially going to be impossible long-term in the CBA. For the Suns, this is a move where you are only doing this to win a ring. Anything else is a failure. Getting to the finals and losing, failure. Making the playoffs, obviously failure. Anything besides a ring, and at this point, multiple, is a seismic failure. Bradley Beale will add a lot to this team. I do wonder, and it is a fair question to ask, is the Suns, what do they struggle with in the playoffs? Depth and defense. You're not getting either of those in trading for Bradley Beal. You're actually taking away from that. You're losing Landry Shamet, and you're losing, I'm going to guess it's going to be at least 4 second-round picks for Bradley Beal. Filling out this roster is going to be difficult for Phoenix, but they do have the best starting 5 now in basketball. They're going to have to challenge the Nuggets in the West. I mean, that's already going to be probably a written-in Western Conference Finals matchup now. It's insane, the starting lineup they're going to have in Phoenix. But like we saw, the model, the mold that won these teams and got them to the final stages in the playoffs was continuity, depth, and star players. Looking at the Suns, they only have star players. I mean, only time will tell if this talent can take over here in Phoenix. But them trading for Bradley Beal is a commitment that they're going to go over the luxury tax. They're going to go over the second apron, most likely in the new CBA. They are fully committed to winning a championship, and anything else will be a complete and utter failure. And then for Washington's sake, this signals a complete rebuild. Something that's been long overdue. Bradley Beal's a tremendous player, but it wasn't working in DC. He's not a point guard. He's not a number one option. On the Suns, he's going to be the third option. He'll thrive. He'll have the easiest 20, 25 points per game in his career. But it just wasn't working out in Washington, and now they have the opportunity to basically reset their salary cap for the next 5 years. Buy out Chris Paul, trade him, cut him, whatever. Suck for 3 to 4 years, and restart this rebuild. They brought in Michael Winger from the Clippers. They brought in Will Dawkins from the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a new era in Washington, and it's going to be a Bradley Beal-less era in Washington. And it's something fans have been calling for a while. And it's not because Beal's a bad player. It's because, number one, the contract, and number two, the fit. They felt like he can't be a number one option on a team that is serious about winning a championship. And you saw that. I mean, they didn't even make the play-in, and they had Kristaps Porzingis, and they had Kyle Kuzma. They had a decent team around him. It just wasn't going to work. So I think Beal is going to have, in terms of efficiency and maybe even point totals, a tremendous season and run in Phoenix. But it was never going to work out in Washington. This is a full rebuild now for the Wizards. Expect them to be top of the lottery for the next 2 to 3 years, but they brought in 2 very qualified leaders in Winger and Dawkins, and they both come from organizations that had to reset. The Clippers, as soon as Michael Winger got there, sent Blake Griffin to Detroit, and then Will Dawkins is the Thunder are notorious for rebuilding and finding talent late in the draft, scouting. So the Wizards are going to look to take that route going into the future, but a seismic move in the NBA. The offseason is officially upon us. This is going to have giant ramifications for next season. I wonder if the Suns will move on from DeAndre Ayton. I know the Indiana Pacers have been interested for a while. They signed him to an offer sheet last offseason, and the Suns matched it. Monty Williams is no longer the coach in Phoenix, and Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton had a tumultuous relationship. We'll see if Frank Vogel can fix that, but it's a new era in Washington. It's a continuation of what's been going on since the ownership change in Phoenix, and the NBA offseason has just begun. With that, I'm Joe Masters here with a special report for WFUV Sports. Have a good one.